solve mechanics problem and how to develop a mathematical equation, a mathematical description of the mechanics problem. Okay, so that you can predict its behavior. Okay. So that is the objective. Next, what content we will cover in this course? So we will review the Newton's law of motion and vector algebra. You will learn the condition of equilibrium of bodies, plane stresses, properties of plane surfaces like moment of inertia, second moment of inertia, okay, friction, and then with the help of virtual work theory, you will be able to calculate displacement and other things. So shear force and bending moment diagram you will learn. So these are the some main components of this course. And after completing this course, you will be able to determine resultant in plane force systems, identify and quantify all forces associated with a static framework, draw shear force diagram and bending moment diagram. So these are the key outcomes. Okay, that means these three outcomes must be achieved by each student. Now, which textbook you can follow? So you can follow these two textbooks. Okay, these two textbooks, and for further reference, you can refer the book by Hibbeler and Timoshenko. Okay, so let's understand the definition of mechanics or what we mean by mechanics. If this question is being asked to you, then you can say that mechanics is a branch of physical sciences that is concerned with the state of rest or motion of bodies subjected to the action of forces. Okay, that means you will learn whether the state of body is in rest or motion, and you will also study their causes. Okay, so what forces are making the bodies in rest, what forces are making the bodies to move, all those forces and their output you will learn under this mechanics subject. This definition of mechanics is very important at any stage. Suppose you have just started this course mechanics, and you told someone that I am studying this mechanics course in my first semester, so they can ask, what is the purpose of studying this mechanics? What you mean by mechanics? Can you define mechanics? Okay, so this definition is important for that aspect. And in interview also, this may be a basic question. So mechanics can be divided into three categories. The first you can name as mechanics of fluids, mechanics of rigid bodies, and mechanics of deformable bodies. Once you know these three categories or three domains of mechanics, you can define your boundary of mechanics course. Okay, so we will be limited. Okay, we will be limited towards the study of statics and dynamics of this mechanics of rigid bodies. Okay, so we will be covering only the mechanics problems that are associated with the rigid bodies. Okay, we will not cover any mechanics theory which are developed for deformable bodies or fluids. This mechanics course we learn statics and dynamics. So if you consider or if you talk about statics, then statics theory are used in several structures. Okay, so suppose if you take example of pyramid, then this pyramid is constructed with the help of small blocks or small elements, and these elements are placed on one each other in a such a manner that they are stable, they are static, they are not moving. Okay, so with the help of static theory of mechanics, you can find out that in which orientation you place these blocks so that they remain in static position. Okay, so this mechanics will help you to define this slope. Okay, this slope you can find out with the help of mechanics theory. And if this slope is not maintained, if you are increasing this slope and making this pyramid somewhat more larger, then what will happen? This may become unstable and some blocks may move. Okay, so this structure will not be stable. Clear? So in this way
Yes, sir.
we apply mechanics theory. Let's take another example. So here the example is the king's grave, and it was built 1400 in 1400 BC. And here you can see some stones are placed vertically, and on top of them a horizontal rock is placed. Okay, so this vertical arrangement of rocks is termed as columns. Okay, so this theory of column you will learn in this mechanics course, and this horizontal rock is known as beam. Okay, so if you know this mechanics of beam, mechanics of column, then you can determine the required cross section of this column in order to make this structure stable. Okay, so if you don't have any knowledge of mechanics, you cannot find out that what should be the cross section of this column and what should be the cross section of this beam, so that you can make this structure very long lasting. Okay. So see, it was built in 1400 BC and still it is existing. Okay, so you can imagine that how robust is its design. So this cross section you can determine with the help of mechanics, and also you can see the span length. Okay, this is known as span length of a beam. Okay, from here to here. So with the help of mechanics, you can determine that what should be the minimum span length in order to make the structure stable. So in this way, this mechanics theory can be applied. Let's take another example. Here, this temple of this is the temple of Hera, and it was built in 550 BC. And here you can see application of several beams and several columns. Okay, and there must be some calculations that what should be the diameter of column, what should be the span length. These were the examples of very ancient past, but we don't have the knowledge of persons who build it. Okay, what mathematics they utilized for calculation of the slope, calculation of the diameter of beam, okay, this span length or whatever. So we don't have the knowledge of those builders, architects, mechanics engineers. Okay, but in 287 to 212 BC, okay, these works are available to us. So we can say that this mechanics theory, or how this mechanics has been evolved with time, that we can say that in this year this theory was proposed. Okay, here Archimedes proposed the principle of lever. Okay, so he proposed that if there is a lever and you are applying some effort over here, and there is a hinge support here, and some object is lying over this end, and you want to manipulate this object, you want to move this object from one place to another, then what effort you need to apply here. Okay, so this effort you can calculate with the help of principle of lever. So this theory was proposed for the first time in this time period, but you cannot say that this lever mechanism was not present before before Archimedes. This lever mechanism must be present, but the written evidence, or the written theory is available from the period of Archimedes. Okay, so he derived the formula, he documented it, and he get it published. Okay, so the Archimedes get the credit of development of the theory of lever or principle of lever. Any queries from you?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Similarly, yeah, similarly, Archimedes developed or proposed the principle of buoyancy. Okay, so this principle of buoyancy you will learn in fluid mechanics. I think this already you may have learned in 12th class in physics course. So this principle of buoyancy was proposed by Archimedes. Then came the scientist Stevinus in 1548 to 1620 period, and he proposed the laws of vector combination of forces. Okay, so with the help of this law, we are able to find out the resultant of different vectors. So suppose a force is acting at a point, let's say it as F1, and another force is acting at the same point, and if it is F2, then with the help of the laws of vector combination of forces, you can find out the net force. Okay, so this formula was first proved by the scientist Stevinus in this period. Okay, then came Galileo, and he first investigated the dynamics problem. So till this 1564, there was no mention of dynamics problem or any theory for solving the dynamics problem. Everyone was proposing some theory, some law, okay, some problems that are related to static problem of mechanics. Okay, but in the 1564, Galileo first investigated the dynamics problem, and he done some experiments with falling stones. So in this fashion or in this manner, the mechanics has evolved from statics to dynamics. Then after Galileo, Newton proposed or Newton solved several problems of dynamics that was not solved by any scientist, either Galileo or some other scientist before Newton. Newton came with new idea of the behavior of motion. Okay, and he proposed, he stated that the motion can be described with the help of three laws. So everyone, I think, knows the three laws of motion. And if you know these three laws of motion, you can describe any motion mathematically. And Newton's one more contribution towards mechanics is his theory of law of gravitation. Okay, so he proposed gravitation law. But in the theory of Newton for mechanics or for motion, there were several assumptions. Okay, so in the Newton's law of motion, the most important assumption was that the frame of reference is inertial frame. Okay, so regarding frame, there was an assumption. Okay, then there was another assumption of point mass, isn't it? Point mass. Any other assumption? Another assumption was that the motion of, or you can say velocity of object should be far lesser than the speed of light. Okay, so the law of motion can only be applied on the objects which are moving at the speed far lesser than the speed of light. Okay, there are several other assumptions like this Newton's law of motion is applicable to objects moving in linear direction or in straight path. Suppose the object is taking some rotation and moving in curvilinear path, then you cannot use the law of motion. In addition to law of motion, you will need to use some other laws also. So there were several assumptions in the Newton's law of motion. That means this law of motion was not applicable to all dynamics problems. Okay, so to solve several other dynamic problems, some theory was proposed by Da Vinci, Varignon, Euler, D'Alembert, Lagrange, Laplace, and others. Okay, so more detail about their work, the work of these scientists, you can explore in Wikipedia, in internet, if you want to explore the further progress of this mechanics with time. Okay, so now let's understand the three laws of motion developed by Newton. Okay, so what was the first law of motion? So if a particle is at rest or moving with constant velocity in a straight line, then it will remain at rest or continue to move with constant velocity in a straight line unless acted upon by a force. So this law is applicable on which type of objects? Only on those objects which are at rest or moving with constant velocity in a straight line. Okay, so suppose an object is moving with constant velocity but in not a straight line, then their behavior cannot be described by this law of motion of Newton, isn't it? Okay,
Yes, sir.
now comes the second law of motion. And in second law of motion, Newton proposes that a particle acted upon by a force will accelerate in the direction of the force. The magnitude of the acceleration is proportional to the magnitude of the force and inversely proportional to the mass of the particle. Okay, so with this statement, he developed a formula F is equal to ma. This F is equal to ma is or you can say this F is equal to ma describes Newton's second law of motion. Okay. So acceleration will be proportional to the force and inversely proportional to the mass of the object or mass of the particle. And here it is very important to know, remember that this m denotes mass of a point, or you can say point mass. Okay, this is very important assumption of Newton. Then comes the third law of Newton, and in this third law, Newton states that for every action there must be an equal and opposite reaction. That means the forces of interaction between two particles are equal in magnitude and oppositely directed along the same line of action. Okay, so suppose you are applying some force, let's say on a wall. Okay, then this wall will exert an equal and opposite force in the same direction. So this will be normal reaction R, and this will be your force. So F will be equal to R. Now, in Newton's law of motion, we studied that suppose a force is acting, then it will produce some motion. Okay, and if no force is acting or the net force is zero, then the body will remain in rest or it will move in the direction of applied force. Okay, but sometimes you will find that your object is acted upon by several forces, and the nature of forces may be in this fashion that okay all forces are acting on the body, but their line of action is interconnected, or their line of action are intersecting at a same point O. Okay, so this type of force is known as concurrent force. What we call it? We call it concurrent or concentrated force. Okay. So, this type of force arrangement is known as concurrent or concentrated force. And suppose the force is acting in this fashion, where the line of action of different forces are not meeting at the same point, but they are intersecting at different points. Then we will call it non-concurrent system of force. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Pratham?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So till now we studied that how this mechanics theory have evolved with time, and how this Newton's law of motion is useful for understanding this mechanics behavior, how we define a concentrated or concurrent system of forces, and how we define a non-concurrent system of forces. Okay. And we also learned the definition of mechanics. Now we are going to study the theory of vector addition of forces. Okay, what we learn? We learn the theory of addition of forces. Okay, so there are two theories which will help you to find out the resultant force in case of concurrent or non-current system of forces. So the one theory is known as parallelogram law, and the other method is triangular law. Okay, so you can apply any one method, either parallelogram method or triangular method, to find out the resultant of system of force. So suppose a body is subjected to these two forces, The one is F1 and another is F2. Okay, and they are concurrent. That means their line of action are passing to the same point. Then, if you want to find out resultant, then you can make a parallelogram. Parallelogram in this way that this side will be parallel to the F2 and there will be another side which will be parallel to F1. And now the diagonal of this parallelogram will give you the resultant force. Okay. And if you want to apply triangular method to find out resultant, then what you can do? This F1, okay, this F1 force, you can place as it is acting on the body, and this F2 you can place in series with F1 in this manner. Okay. Then if you close the triangle, so okay, if you close this triangle, then this closing side will give you the resultant force. So in this way, we apply triangular law to find out resultant. There is another possibility that you place F1 in this way and F2 in this fashion. Okay, where in earlier method you placed F2 on the top of F1, but here you are placing F2 on the bottom of F1. Then your closing side of the triangle will again give you the resultant force. Okay. So the same statement is written here describing the parallelogram law. It says that if two forces acting at a point are represented in magnitude and direction by the two adjacent sides of a parallelogram. So if two adjacent sides of parallelogram are representing the two forces F1, F2, then their resultant is represented in magnitude and direction by the diagonal passing through the point. So this diagonal will represent the resultant of these two forces. Clear? So the same, or you can say the whatever we understood from here, the same thing is written in a text form to describe this triangular law. It says that if two forces acting at a point are represented in magnitude and direction by the two adjacent sides of the triangle taken in order, then the closing side of the triangle taken in the reverse order represents the resultant of the forces in magnitude and direction. Okay, so these two are your important formula or methods for finding out the resultant of a concurrent force or resultant of two forces. Okay. Now, one another important formula or method is law of sine and cosine. It will help you to determine the resultant of system of force. Okay. So it is a property of vectors. So suppose there is a force or vector arrangement in this triangular form, in this triangle form, okay, and suppose there is a force A acting in this direction along this side, and another force B is acting along this side, and there is another force C acting along this side, and the angle between B and C, A and B, and A and C are given as alpha, gamma, beta. Then there will be a relationship like this: A by sine alpha is equal to B by sine beta is equal to C by sine gamma, and this is known as law of sines. And then another law is there, law of law of cosines. Okay, this law of cosines give you three equations in this form. Okay, so A square is equal to B square plus C square minus 2BC cos alpha. So if you want to find out A square, then the remaining two sides of the triangle will be used to find out this A square. So there is a structure. You can remember this structure, and if you know this structure, then equation can easily be written. Then, in line with this law of sines, there is another theorem, that is Lami's theorem. So this Lami's theorem basically denotes this law of sines only. Okay, so here just the representation of forces is changed. So earlier this force system was represented in triangle form. Now it is denoted in this form where all the forces A, B, C are shown passing through a single point, and their angles are alpha, beta, gamma in this way. So if the system of force is in this manner, then there will be a relationship like A by sin alpha is equal to B by sin beta is equal to C by sin gamma. ओके तो हम लोगों ने बहुत सारे थ्योरी फार्मूले पढ़ लिए. नाउ इट्स टाइम टू सॉल्व ए एग्जांपल. ओके so let me introduce to you this problem and then you can solve it by your own. Okay, so the problem is like there is a figure given. These two are figures and it shows two position vectors. Okay, so these two are position vectors of magnitude a is equal to 60 meter. Okay, so the magnitude of this position vector is 60 meter and the magnitude of this position vector is 100 meter. You have to determine the resultant. Okay, so take 3-4 minutes time and find out the resultant of these two vectors. Can you do it? Can you solve it? Just if you apply parallelogram law or triangle law, then you can easily find out the resultant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so please try to solve and tell me answer. Let me first quickly show you the steps how you will solve and then you try to solve. Okay, so first you will place this vector b in this manner. Okay, and then you can place this a vector on the bottom of this b vector like this. And if you, or there is another possibility that b is placed like this and you are placing this a vector on the tip or top of the b vector. Then if you connect, okay, if you connect this or if you make a triangle out of these two vectors, then the closing side, okay, this closing side or this closing side will give you the resultant. Okay, so suppose this was the 60 magnitude, this was 100 magnitude, and this angle is 30, this angle is 70. So you can easily find out this internal angle between vector a and b. That will be equal to 140. Okay, and now if you apply cosine law, then you can easily uh, calculate this magnitude of r. So cosine law states that r square, this r square will be equal to this 60 square plus 100 square minus 2 times 60 into 100 into cos 140. So, okay, so now please calculate the magnitude of r. Tell me answer.
Sir, it's approximately 151.
Yeah, perfect. So your answer is correct. It will come to 151 point meter. Okay, so it will be the correct answer is 151 meter. Perfect. So in this way you can find out magnitude. Now any vector is defined by their magnitude and direction. So here you are just getting the magnitude. How you will find the direction? So the most easy method to find out the direction of this r vector is to apply sine law. Okay, so here we have applied cosine law. Now next you apply sine law, you will easily find out the direction of this r vector. How? So if you apply sine law, here sine law, okay, then you will get 100 divided by sine alpha. So this is the magnitude 100 divided by the angle opposite to this side. So the angle opposite to this side is alpha. So 100 by sine alpha is equal to this r vector and angle opposite to this side is 140. So r divided by 140. Okay. So this r, you know, the value of r is 151. So you can easily find out alpha. The alpha value will be, its value will be 55.2 degree. Okay. So this, the direction of this r vector will be at 55.2 degree from a vector. Clear? So in this way we can find out the direction and magnitude of resultant by applying parallelogram theory or triangle law. Now in this class we have solved only one problem, but in coming lectures we will solve many more problems on parallelogram law and sine law. Okay, thank you. So now time is over for our class. So I am going to end this meeting.